Howdy, all you delicious people. I am here today to review the 2021 film Censor. So, a lot of people immediately will be asking, well, hey, where the heck can I go out of my way to see this film? Because I don't want to spend X amount of dollars on a brand new released film. I don't want to spend blah, blah, blah. Like, a lot of times there is probably a lot of movies that are actually on Prime, and they could actually be free, honestly. Or sometimes you could kind of get just a person with you to see it and just kind of break the price in half. But here is dare in fact where you can go into two different apps to find this movie and watch it for absolutely free. I have been mentioning on every single one of my apps to go in fact watch a movie on a app called C Movies, letter C and then movies, so C Movies. Or you can go on to an app called Fox HD Movies, and like the logo will say that, but the actual title of the app won't say that. It'll say like play 1080p and then eventually 1080p movies, and I think like that will be what the app looks like. Both of these will be on Google Play. I don't know where the heck else. So if you don't have Google Play on a cell phone or mobile device, then sorry. But a lot of people, I think, do have Google Play, but not everyone. So sorry. But anyways, then eventually just find an app that is movie app adjacent that you can watch a lot of movies for free. So, Censor, teeing this up for people, what is this movie about? So, I actually really got interested in this movie up until a certain point. Because eventually, like, this movie was really intriguing at first, but then all of a sudden it started to have, like, a hill to eventually die on. Like, I was like, man, this started out really good, and then all of a sudden it just got to this, like, this just kind of point where I was like, yeah, this has a crappy ending, in all honesty. Like, I was just kind of intrigued that they were like that this girl was eventually going to keep doing her job, and her job was going to all of a sudden like morph her into being uh, a crazed person that is to just go off and just start killing people. Is that, and that's what I naturally assumed would have happened, but it didn't. So, teeing up this movie, we have a girl who is to work in censorship. So, uh, there are people that make a number of decisions on whether or not a movie should get a certain rating or not. Whether or not a movie would be okay to see in a theater, or just say, you know what, you should probably just release this and have it just be unrated, so that way you can put whatever you want out there. Because I'm assuming if people actually wanted their movie actually rated, then eventually they would just like, yeah, like you're gonna have to cut some things, you're gonna have to trim the fat somewhere, because like this just has too many cuss words, this just has too many of this, and so like it's hard to rate this movie, so it might as well just go unrated. Like before, we used to have the whole like tape trading thing where really like it came down to the fact that like there wasn't as easy an outlet to go and find and see everything, to where a lot of movies did get banned in certain countries and no one could have ever seen a certain film until many years later, when the internet was invented and Netflix was invented and a number of other apps after that, to make it easy for you to buy an overseas film with a region 1 coding on it, so you can go, well, heck, like I was never able to see this movie, but now I can. Hopefully it's dubbed in English, and here we go. So like there is a lot more lax like things to just say, hey, like be warned. Like there is some strong content going on here and you should be aware of that. But like, yeah, like we have gotten to a point where like, yeah, censorship is great and all, and I believe movies should make people aware of what is going on in the film. Um, but yeah, but I think it's just much harder to try to police what's going on right now with basically anybody having the ability to see any movie anywhere. Like it's getting to that kind of point. So going into this film, we are to see this time. I think this feels like a time period piece where we are to have people start to rate films and start to censor films, and they are starting to ban films from certain countries. But eventually, there are certain movie stores that are to have banned films, and eventually, some people will find that out. And evidently, certain store spots that do have banned films eventually might get arrested or might get like raided into their movie store to be found out and whichever and what have you, because there might be some kind of moonshine or whatever it's called, like some kind of underground way of like, hey man, I saw this movie, yeah, well I want to see it, ooh, like let's trade tapes for money. So like the whole moonshine thing would eventually like they like outlawed alcohol, but people were like sneaking it around from spot to spot anyways to get people drunk. And so really that's kind of what I'm talking about there, is like the whole moonshine days. So uh so going on here, so we have these people that are going and doing a lot of censorship on these movies, and eventually it lands them in hot water at some point, and then eventually they are to eventually keep doing what they're doing to realize that it seems that there's some movies that are going out anyways. And then also we have the story of this main girl who was Enid or Enid, that like she has her own story that has to be put through this film, and eventually that's just where the movie ends, with just this girl's story, with Bane's story, with Enid's story, and I was just kind of like, yeah, that just kind of like it doesn't really it didn't really like, I was like, man, like they were building up to something to just have it just like go nowhere. And I was just so disappointed about that. Like I thought like there would have been some real good conclusion to all this, but really it was just not quite all that well wrapped, and it was just anyways. So yeah, it was a good, interesting movie at first, but then eventually the way this plays out it just didn't sit well. So let's go into the spoilers of this movie and talk about how it was in spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we need to spoil this movie. So yeah, so in the very beginning of this film, we have a girl that is consistently doing well at censoring things, getting down to watching all kinds of films that have disturbing uh, and just kind of very violent things going on into it. People getting chopped with axes and all kinds of stuff, like to eventually getting to the point of just like, man, this movie's going way too far, and so we need to edit or tailor it back so that way it can be released in this country, which is America, I'm assuming, or anywhere in the world, I'm assuming, because I don't think it should actually matter as these people speak English anyways. So, or maybe they don't. Maybe you're watching this anywhere in the world and you also speak a different language, but you understand what I'm saying, luckily enough. So, because I don't want to establish that this is an American movie, because it could be anywhere. So these people are to censor this film, and like really they kind of talk like shop between one another, that sometimes there's too many like There's too many cuss words that it's kind of really severely hard to figure out where exactly they could edit things out in this film. And so really they just give it like the hardest rating, like basically like an R rating, or like the highest R rating or whatever. So like this movie either gets banned or like gets it to just be like, dude, this is only going to be for adults, and that's it because of all the language. So because they go throughout the entire movie and they try to like edit it basically, or re-edit it so that way it can go out to America, or so that way it can be like feasible uh for no one to get disturbed, or no one to like freak out about this movie, about how gruesome or graphic or whatever it is. We consistently see them like go throughout their job and like tell what exactly they were going to do throughout a number of these films, and I thought that that was really fascinating to me. So we go on and consistently have these people having to watch these films, and so eventually uh, we have Enid, who is getting in hot water with her superior, and she needs to go into his office with another guy who had reviewed the exact same movie. And so Enid's superior is to mention to both of these reviewers, or both of these censors, yeah, like you guys did a movie. I think it was called Deranged, and so they're like, well, yeah, like, so what? Like, what is the big dealio? There was supposedly a scene in that movie where some guy was to go and kill his wife and like eat her face or something, and they're like, well, yeah, if anything, like the way of which that part was shot, like we had this kind of back and forth about it, but like we've easily passed things worse than that. And so the boss says, well, wait a minute. So there had been an actual guy that copycatted exactly what had happened via that movie, and is now blaming that movie for why he had taken his wife, killed her, and ate her face. And so he's blaming this movie, and so that is actually blaming the censorship people for letting this movie go out there. I'm like, why not just actually blame the film creator? Why not actually blame the people that put this movie together? Blame the actor. Blame the like blame anybody that was to do this scene and to say, you know what, I think this is a little bit too far. But like, no, like the censorship people are getting the real true burden about having this thing go out. And so their superiors telling them, it's like, well, if there is ever a time where you have to second guess anything in any movie, just ban the film or come to me about it. Because a mistake like this can happen, and we'll get like ridiculed for it. And consistently, this girl is getting like Edith is getting like death threats, and having people consistently calling her, say, how could you put that movie out? How could you? Ah, rah, 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 rah. And Edith is like, dude, like I didn't lose my job over this, so who cares? Like, like, so what? Like, so it was one mistake. So freaking what? Like, if anything, like now with movies, like you could just see an entire like chest of a man and all kinds of things. Like, go and watch the movie Super Deep, where we have some like grotesque things going on in that movie. Look at that girl's back in that film. It just looks like that looks a little gross, you know what I'm saying? A little gross. A little bit of that gross, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, like, yeah, I just watched most of the movie Super Deep. I don't even know if I'm going to review it. Like, it looks like a movie that I could probably easily like review, but it also looks like something that I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna trip and stumble over through that entire movie, and more than likely there are gonna be a lot of details that I'm just not gonna get to, and I feel like that review is gonna be really thin because I'm gonna have to forcibly do it to be really thin, just because I'm like, yeah, like I didn't really understand the overall thing of what was going on in that film, but I just don't know if I ever want to actually review the super deep. I don't know. Plus, I don't know if anybody actually really cared about that film, but I'd be wrong, maybe a lot of times. But doesn't matter. Moving on. So, but super deep is gross. So, so moving on. So eventually, this girl keeps getting death threats, and so Edith is to eventually meet a guy named Doug Smart, and he is a guy that is to be putting movies together. And so eventually he is to meet Edith and like, wow, like I didn't know any of you like censorship people were like looked any kind of like photogenic or anything. And so Edith is like, oh, thanks for the compliment. And Doug is like, well, hey, like if you're like getting a little tired banning my movies, maybe you want to be a part of them at one point. And Edith is like, I'm sorry, Mr. Smart, but I don't want to be a part of a movie that it's going to either kill or RAPE me. So no, like I don't want that to happen because of how like dark I guess this guy's movies are. So Doug is like, well, like I'm gonna give you and one other of your censor people like a screening of my new film called "Don't Go in the Church," and so Edith and this other guy are to go in and watch this movie, and all of a sudden we have e e Enid who is to go in here, and all of a sudden it seems that something is very familiar to her or reminding her of her and her sister, like a situation between them, to the point of Eden, Eden, Enid. I'm going to say that name incorrectly. I might as well say Baines. So Baines is to watch this movie and start to get sick, and so her other reviewer is to pause the movie and kind of try to comfort Baines and just say like, yeah, this movie was like really haunting to me. Like it must have gotten to you. And she's like, you know what? No, I'm just kind of feeling really sick. And like her coworker is just like, well, yeah, like I get it. Like I get the stress of it all. Like I get like the stress of like basically watching a number of horror films and like eventually it'll get to you. So plus also the stress of like letting that one movie go and like everybody's now giving her death threats through her phone consistently. So but a lot of her coworkers are saying like, hey, mistakes can be made. Like not everyone's perfect. Something could accidentally be slipped through and not realize. So like people can make mistakes. So Eden is to eventually watch more of this movie and start to realize that one of these actresses seems familiar. And Eden is to go and have dinner with her folks. And so her folks is to give Baines a death certificate for her sister, claiming that it's like, well, like her sister has gone missing for a number of years now. I don't think she's ever coming back. We might as well just say now that she is just dead and just call it like it is, that this girl is dead, and like, and so here's the death certificate. Baines is like, well, like technically she's still missing, and like her parents just wants closure over the matter. So Baines is to uh, is to like at some points call her mother or kind of try to at some points talk about her work, but it seems like a lot of times she starts but then she stops because really like anytime like this woman is to talk about her work, it probably would seem like her parents don't actually care, or that it's like, well, hey, like jobs are tough, like, and plus, like, you chose this kind of career, going into a movie and having to do your kind of editing to have, so you're going to see some outlandish stuff. So Baines is to eventually want to uh, try and find more things out about don't go to the church. So Bates is asking this woman about the director and kind of some more information about him, and the girl is to ask, well, do you have like any of the other movies that this person has done? And Baines is like, well, no. And she's like, well, that's probably going to take at least a week. And so Baines is like, that's fine. So so eventually, because I guess Doug isn't actually the director of this thing. He just kind of puts like the money, I guess, for this movie, but someone else, I guess, directs it. Because this guy is just like a part of this movie, but he's not like the big part of it. So Baines is to eventually go to a movie store and is to already see that there is some banned movie that is at this movie store. And so Baines is to ask this movie store clerk, "Hey, yeah, like I had recently just seen a movie called Don't Go to the Church that has this director. Do you have anything here that had probably been banned from this director? Because I want to see this movie. I want to see this thing because." Obviously, I know already that you have a number of banned films. I can already tell there's already one banned film in here. So the store clerk gives Baines whatever she wants, and so Baines is not going to report her or report this store clerk. So Baines goes off and starts watching some movies with just very violent things in it, violent things into it, and so eventually Baines is just to continue going into her job while watching movies that have been banned, and so uh, Baines is to eventually realize that there is an actress that looks just like her sister. Like, it seems like her eyes or her hair or just something like looks just like her sister. So, and eventually it seems like this actress, is actually uh, in that Doug Smart movie. And so that's why, like, uh, Baines was kind of just looking into this director, just kind of looking into this movie to just kind of find out like things about this actress. So Baines is to eventually meet up with Doug Smart at his home, and so Doug and Baines are kind of like talking to one another, and so Baines is kind of bringing up the actress that is in his movie that looks just like his sister, or her sister, I mean. And so eventually we have Doug, who is getting more and more drunk as the night is to progress. And so I hit a button by accident. So eventually Baines is trying to get some answers about this movie, maybe even wanting to just be a part of it, just so that way she can ask this girl if this is really her sister or not. So, uh, so Baines is to start to kind of have Doug like just wanting Baines. Like he doesn't, like he's not even thinking about anything that is to happen next with Baines. He's looking at her as right now, just saying like, well, you know what? Maybe you and me can put a scene together. Maybe you and me could do something right here and now. And so, kind of Doug is overpowering Baines, and then eventually Baines is going and pushing Doug and ramming his head by them falling backwards together, ramming this guy's head into some kind of metal piece of sorts. Like I don't like some kind of statue looking thing. Like his this thing goes through his head and out his mouth. And so Baines is to kill this guy off. And then immediately Baines is to transition to go onto the set of Doug Smart's movie and starts putting makeup on and is going to be a part of this movie. And so some people are asking for Doug Smart on set, and I guess he didn't arrive, and that seems very suspicious. So, uh, so Bane starts to get into makeup, and like I guess she is to perform some role that she doesn't even know what she's actually doing. So Baines is to get on set, and so this director is trying to push her to do this scene, and Baines doesn't even know what she's doing, or Baines, I don't think, can actually get there. So it seems like the director is trying to like do something with Baines, but it seems like it's not exactly working out exactly the way the director wants. But this like Baines eventually gets pushed onto another scene regardless. So there is a scene where Baines is working with her supposed sister and this beast man guy that is to go and be like looking like a almost a normal human, but his face is just kind of like menacing. So this guy is to speak like a demon or a monster, or just kind of like his like he has a odd like tone. And so Baines is just kind of really caught up in the scene about having to protect her sister from this beast man. And so all of a sudden, Baines is going and taking this weapon that she is to hold and actually go and kill this beast man in actual real time. To where the beast man is saying, hey, this wasn't actually in the script. And like, and so beast man is getting now killed off. Bane's sister is now running off, and Baines is running after her, like saying that you're my sister, and this girl is like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not your sister. Like, I'm not going to. Because this redheaded girl, this actress, was saying that this is going to be her last movie, that she was going to be done after this. And I guess after this whole situation, she probably was like, dude, I'm getting out of here because I'm not going to like go into a movie to get killed. So Baines is all of a sudden having this hallucination that and also like this is like during the time period of like VHS, because I remember seeing the VHSs as they pop out of the VHS uh, device or VCR, VHS and VCR. There we go. VCR. I had to think of what the name was because I had to like I remember the time period of VHSs like, and I know VCRs, and like I remember the whole uh like I think I had like 5 or 6 movies like still left with like VHSs, and I was just kind of holding out. But then I realized I'm like, well, I guess DVDs are the way of the future, so I guess I have to start getting rid of my VHSs. So I slowly but surely started to get rid of all of them. And then I just decided to just like, okay, like we're gonna go from DVDs, and then eventually, if there's a favorite movie of mine, then I'll go and upgrade to Blu-rays because I don't know, it seemed like a good thing to do, a sound thing to do, and plus also there was extra content insert movies for Blu-rays compared to DVDs or even VHSs or whatever. So we have Baines that is now hallucinating. That all of a sudden her sister is coming back to her and saying, "Oh yes, I am your sister," and hey, let's go and go back to let's go back to our parents and let's all go home and let's all have like a good time. Because we have Baines losing her effing mind, and you can just see the wheels of churning and burning. And so Baines in her fantasy is to make her way back to this home, and eventually when Baines is to turn to the screen, just like, yeah, I'm gonna have my happy ending, all of a sudden you're to see this VHS come out of the VCR and have it be called the movie Censor, and then the movie ends. I'm like, man, that kind of feels like a retro film, and plus it also feels like a very meta thing to do in a good way to end a film like that way. But the stuff that happened after that, I was like, yeah, this just doesn't exactly hit me all that good. But like, I guess they couldn't figure out maybe how to end this movie, or really like I don't know, like it just seemed goofy, or it just kind of seemed like a like I'm like, man, like stuff happening earlier was, yeah, there was some kind of like dark things happening, but after that it just kind of just got to the like, well, like I didn't care for the ending. But with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.